you're all on mute. And if you need to unmute yourself, it is at the bottom of the left screen. Let's start with a roll call. City of Tucson, Suntran.
Steve Spade here.
City of South Tucson. Tohono O'odham Nation. Pashkokoke Yaqui Tribe. Pima County.
Here.
Town of Marana.
Here.
Town of Sahuarita. I know Vince is here. Okay, great. Town of Oro Valley.
Here.
Great. Thank you. Item number 2 on our agenda is the in-kind form. Regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PEG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you're paid with federal dollars, please let us know now. Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PEG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in the meeting. Time spent working on PEG, RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. Moving on to item number 3 on our agenda is the Sun Shuttle RTA funded service analysis and planning. This has to do with our Sun Shuttle Route 410. It continues to be our lowest performing route in our Sun Shuttle system, and we've seen significant ridership loss since even prior to the pandemic. Our monthly ridership has remained around 200 to 300 a month since November of 2019. Transit Working Group representatives, along with RTA staff and the staff from Town of the Marana and Pima County, are recommending the proposed service be changed from a deviated flex route to a demand response dial-a-ride service, similar to what we are providing in Green Valley, Sahuarita. I am going to turn over the presentation on the service recommendation to Preston. Preston will give the presentation on the service changes.
Thank you, Amber. Crystal, do I have access to share? Yes, I do. Okay, great. Let me share my screen. Is everyone able to see my presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, thanks for that introduction, Amber. So yeah, I'm just going to go into a bit more detail on the service change that we're proposing that would shift the current Route 410 in the Marana-Apper Valley area from a traditional fixed route service to a more on-demand style curb-to-curb service. But before jumping into those specifics, I did want to provide some information and statistics on that provided some reasoning for why we're deciding to make this change. Firstly, being the chronically low ridership that has been occurring, like Amber mentioned, even before COVID. We've seen around 200 to 350 riders per month since November of 2019. That number hasn't really increased. It's fluctuated, it's gone up a little, gone down a little, but it's remained relatively around that range of ridership for quite a while now. We've made a number of redesigns and reroutes over recent years, with the most recent redesign occurring in November of 2020. Unfortunately, this has not increased ridership as we had hoped. So we're looking to make this change, and we feel like this would be the best option. I also wanted to provide some key statistics for fiscal year 2021 for all of our services, which you can see in the rows to the left. And I've highlighted Route 410, which is at the bottom of the table for a number of reasons. Firstly, like we were, that's been alluded to. 410 has had the lowest ridership of any of our fixed route services, at least in the Tucson region. I think there's a service in Ajo that's a little less, but within the Tucson region, this has consistently been our lowest performing route in terms of ridership. You can see that for fiscal year 2021, we saw an average of 1 passenger per revenue hour, which is quite low. And if you look further to the right at subsidy per passenger, you can see that for 410, it is significantly higher than any of our other services, both public dial ride or fixed routes. And so, and you can also see that reflected in the service costs. So, Route 410 is one of our most expensive services while providing, some of the lowest ridership. So this is the main reason why we're reconsidering this route and proposing this service change. But before we decided to finalize any decisions on what type of service we would be wanting to implement, we did want public input from the local community. So over the course of a couple weeks in between October 28th and November 10th of 2021, we held 4 public input meetings, and they were held in Marana, Avra Valley, Picture Rocks, and there was one virtual meeting. And along with those input meetings where we received feedback, we also gave individuals the option to complete surveys, either online, paper surveys that they could complete at those meetings, or onboard surveys, actually on the buses for riders currently taking the service. And we have that available for over the course of around a month. And we did receive a total of 32 surveys back, which is a healthy number. So we used that information in our decision-making process, the information we received. Additionally, we did host a series of meetings with our unofficially appointed 410 Service Change Committee, which consisted of staff from the SunTran marketing team, staff from the town of Marana, staff from Pima County, and also staff from our current contractors who are operating the service. And so during those meetings that we held over the course of 6+ months, we discussed and analyzed current service metrics, as well as the public feedback that we were given during those input meetings, and also discussed the details of the proposed service changes. So they were very influential in helping shape this proposed service change that we're presenting today. And that's what you see on the left-hand side of this slide. This would be our proposed service area. We would call it the Marana Avra Valley Dial-A-Ride service. And like Amber mentioned, it would be very similar to our existing Green Valley public Dial-A-Ride service, which is on the right-hand side of this slide. Operation would take place Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is almost exactly the same as the current service times and days that the 410 fixed route service operates. And so within this service area that's in light blue, anyone in that area can schedule a curb-to-curb service. There's also 22 designated stops that we've provided that we tried to disperse throughout the service area evenly, and riders can actually use can take trips from one of these stops to another of these stops for a reduced fare if they decide to do that as well. So there are options for the riders. I also wanted to provide just some backup additional information on productivity by stop for the current 410 route. So this is the table that you see. It has all of the stops, and I've highlighted the 5 most productive stops in terms of the percentage of riders boarding and jumping off at those particular stops. And I just wanted to mention that this was considered when establishing those 22 stops, and all of the highest performing stops that are currently on the fixed route will still be included as a designated stop in our new service. Additionally, we spoke with our contractors, Total Ride, to come up with a monthly cost estimate for this proposed Marana-Avra Valley dial-a-ride service. And based off their calculations, they were estimating a monthly cost of just under $18,000 a month, which is significantly lower than what we've currently paid for this service, which on average in fiscal year 21 was around $25,000 a month for the service. You can also see at the graph on the bottom right, subsidies per passengers over the years has increased exponentially. So we're really hoping that this new service change will bring us back to those fiscal year 2018, 2019 numbers that you see on the left of that graph there, which would be more in alignment with all of our other fixed route and dial-a-ride services currently. And so now I just wanted to provide you with some more information on how the service is going to be used and what we're planning for, how to book the trips and when. So trips can be booked 3 different ways. Users can call in to schedule a trip, which is the traditional way of doing things. That's how they're currently booking trips for our other public dial-a-ride services and our ADA dial-a-ride services. But we're also adding 2 additional options. We're working on a new Sun Shuttle dial-a-ride smartphone app where riders can actually book trips on their phone and manage those trips. And if they don't have a smartphone, they can also schedule trips online just through any web browser. They can go and schedule a trip that way. So there's those 3 options. There's those 2 new options, number 2 and 3. And we are highly encouraging riders to book trips in advance between 1 and 7 days before the day of travel. However, there is same-day service that is available on a limited first-come, first-served basis. But if drivers aren't able to fit those trips into their schedule that day, there may be the potential for riders to not be able to take that trip that same day. So we're going to definitely recommend riders highly to book their trips in advance between 1 and 7 days before travel. And this is what we're doing with our current Green Valley Sahuarita dial-a-ride service that we've been operating for a while now. So it would again be similar to what we've been doing down south. In terms of fare structure, we did decide that we're going to keep the first 6 months of service free of charge, regardless of what other fare changes occur for our other services, just to entice riders to try out the service, become familiar with it, and then we can go and reassess after those 6 months. Whenever their fares are implemented, if that does happen, trips will be either a curb-to-curb or stop-to-stop service, like I mentioned. If riders are wanting to take a trip within that service area that doesn't fall on one of those designated stops, it would be considered a curb-to-curb service, which will have a slightly higher fare. And again, if they're wanting to take a trip from one of those designated stops to another of those stops, service will be the same fare as any of our other fixed route services. And then additionally, both the curb and stop-to-stop services will offer economy fares for those who do qualify. And then lastly, I just wanted to discuss our public outreach marketing plan. So whenever this proposed service change is approved, we intend to begin the public outreach phase almost immediately. It's broken into 3 categories. First being the business outreach. So we're going to be distributing flyers and brochures to businesses and organizations that are frequently visited by current riders that are along the current route, and just heavily used areas where just local residents in general frequent. So we're going to have that, as well as we're going to be working with the businesses and housing complexes that are at those new stop locations, those 22 stop locations that I mentioned earlier. And we're going to work with them to try and add more permanent signage at those locations if needed. In terms of public outreach, we're hoping to schedule some in-person meetings to discuss the service changes at some of the key community centers in the region, such as the Marina Senior Center, potentially some of the veteran centers, potentially churches, those types of things. So we can demonstrate, how this service will look and how to use the app. If individuals do qualify for economy fares, we can sign them up. So we're hoping to do that. We're also going to be providing service change notices on the Sun Shuttle, RTA, and Town of Marana web pages, as well as across a number of social media platforms. And then we're going to be distributing brochures of the new service to riders who are currently taking the fixed route 410 service, just so they're aware and they have that new information and they know when the service will be changing. And then in terms of signage, we are hoping to place new decals on the existing bus stop signs along the current fixed route. And those new decals will have all the new service information, and it'll have information on, how riders can book trips, dates of service and times of service, those types of things. We're also currently in talks with purchasing a billboard along I-10 near Marana to advertise the new service change. And then we're working on adding this service change information to the digital tower on Main Street in Marana. And if you haven't been there, it's just a large electronic billboard. It has business information, but we're hoping to also include our service change information on that billboard as well. So that's the information I wanted to provide. There's a lot of information, I know, but if you have any questions, Amber and I can try to answer those for you. Thank you.
Hey, Preston, this is Steve. I don't have a question, but I do have a couple thoughts. I liked your ideas of promoting the service. A couple things that we did with our on-demand that I thought were really successful is we identified, like you were talking about your senior center in some places, we identified complexes that had a preponderance of retirees or elderly folks. And before the service started, we took a vehicle out and offered to take them on little excursions to show them how the system worked. Took people out into groups. They seemed to be, more interested in doing that. And then the other thing that we did was we worked with some of those retirement centers to set up periodic trips. Like we said, if a lot of the people want to get up and do grocery shopping or recreate or go somewhere else, we could set a time, say 10 o'clock every Tuesday. We'll pick up as ever many people want to go shopping, take them to the local Target or Walmart or whatever, and let them spend an hour and do something as a group outing. And those really built a lot of early interest. And I think people were more comfortable in using it when they're doing it part of as a group.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Thank you. I'll make a note of that, and I'm sure there are complexes in Marana. I'd have to explore that further. That are predominantly senior, and we could definitely think about doing that as well. So I can bring that to the SunTrend marketing team, and we can discuss that option. So thank you,
James.
Hi, thanks. I apologize for being late. Had some.
I'm sorry about the invite issues.
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Is there did I miss a map earlier of the area that?
Yes. So the map you see on the left would be our service area boundary map, along with those 22 designated stops within that boundary.
Okay, great. And is this going to operate, basically, is this going to be similar to the other dial-a-ride? So this is going to have dedicated vehicles, or is this going to be on like vehicles assigned to the area when needed, or how is that going to work?
Currently, we'll have one vehicle dedicated to the area. And
Okay.
the scheduling will be just like the Green Valley Sahuarita Dial a Ride. We prefer 1 day in advance to 7, and same day service is only as available.
Okay. So basically mirroring that same policy structure with the pricing. Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we are for right now, just to make sure we can meet the demand. We did discuss doing on demand, and we feel like we just would rather mirror the service right now to our Dial a Ride.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense, just to try to understand what the demand is going to be like. I mean, I will say that the 410 has been struggling for a long time. So I certainly understand the need to sort of go to this model. It'll be interesting to see how it's accepted and how it's used.
I think outreach is going to be we're really going to have to focus on the outreach so individuals get a better understanding of how to utilize it. Our hopes is we're going to launch this with the EcoLane app that the contractor is using right now, so folks can use the app to look at where the vehicle is, as well as they can schedule trips when their ride comes. So we're hoping to roll that out at the same time. So we're hoping to do that in the beginning of June. We're working with EcoLane right now just to get the app rolling for the other services. I know they're using EcoLane right now in Green Valley Sahuarita for their scheduling. They moved that over from TripShot. So we're hoping in the next couple of weeks we can get that, so we can start demoing it and piloting it and communicating how folks can access, not only with the call-in, but with the app.
I also did want to mention that this current boundary does encompass all of the service area that the fixed route currently operates. So we just, we're not getting rid of any service in any location that the current 410 operates along. So we're actually expanding that. And yeah, I'm also interested to see how things go. And we are going to be monitoring, obviously, the metrics very closely each month once we do launch it. And I'm hoping after 6 months or so, we can survey riders and maybe reassess the specifics of the service. And if there's more demand, in a particular region, maybe we could add a point to, another location, or if we see one of these stops that isn't used very often, we can, remove it, or, so yeah, we're definitely going to be keeping a close eye on the metrics, and we will be reassessing in after launch, after a period of time, and just to make sure that the service is as efficient and accessible to individuals in the region as possible with the resources that we have.
James, do you have additional?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I'm sure this has probably come up, but a lot of this area is very rural, and a lot of the roads are dirt. So I think with door-to-door service, if you're using one of the cutaway vehicles, there might be some situations where you're going to get into roads that those vehicles aren't going to be able to navigate. So that's just something to think about, for scheduling folks who live along some of these rural roads, is there might need to be some designated pickup points on roads that you can't get the vehicle down, things like that. So I'm curious how that would be handled.
We'll see, and we'll do that on a case-by-case basis and have the contractor evaluate, just as we would with Sun Shuttle, or like Sunvan does with the services, and we'll try to establish those pickup points if needed. So definitely taking in consideration that some of the roads may not be the best for transport of those cutaways.
Yeah, it's a good point, James. Thanks for that.
Are there any additional comments? Jonathan and Lisa were key in the discussions and involved throughout our entire process, just to make sure that we have a handle from Pima County and the Marana side of representing our jurisdictions. Lisa couldn't be here, but Jonathan, do you have any additional input?
No, not really. It looks great. The map is awesome, and I'm hopeful that that this will take off and work. So great job, you guys. Really good job.
Well, we thank you for all the input, and we're just hoping to continue to provide a reliable transit service in this low density area that maybe we've had just, there's always been just some issues of less opportunity for our fixed route services here. So we will continue to monitor and give the transit working group updates as we launch the service. If there are no additional comments and questions, I'd like to request that the transit working group approve the Sun Shuttle Route 410 change from the deviated flex to the demand response recommendation that we've provided. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. Steve.
Okay. Can I do a roll call of our voting members? The City of Tucson?
This is James. I'll say aye.
City of South Tucson, Tohono O'odham Nation, Haskayaki Tribe, Pima County,
Aye.
Town of Marana,
Aye.
Town of Sahuarita. Okay, thanks, Vince. Town of Oro Valley,
Aye.
so the transit working group has approved the service change, and we will start on our public outreach process. The launch is dependent on when we can roll it out with the app, but we are shooting for June 6th. I thank you for all involved with the planning and the analysis. And if there's any additional questions, let us know. We'll keep you all updated. I'm going to move on to item 4, which is our regional transit service updates. Wanted to hear from our jurisdictions. Rhett or Steve or James, do you have any updates from SunTrans, Sunvan, Sunlink, any of the services?
This is James. I just wanted to mention that we are in the final stages of negotiating with a selected vendor to do our comprehensive operational analysis. And of course, PAG RTA will be involved in that. So, we should have more information about that soon, and be happy to give an update on how we anticipate that project will roll out once we've gotten that vendor settled, had our kickoff meeting.
Well, I'm looking forward to that process. So that once it's all settled, it'd be great to bring an update about some of the things that are being looked at within the COA for the region. Oro Valley, do you have any updates?
I have a couple, and Mike might have some more, but we're still short of drivers somewhat. So some days we still have to stop taking reservations for the next day before the reservation hours close. We're awaiting 5 new buses that are up at Creative Bus Sales, should be getting here in another month or so, which will be helpful to us to replace some of the older buses that are giving us problems. We are, as you are aware, Amber and James, we are concerned about the future support of the 5310 program for our replacement buses. And so we'll have to be watching that closely and probably asking for some support from 5307 or TIP to offset that in the future, but we'll wait to see how that plays out. And that's all I have. I don't know if Mike has more to add. Fares? Fares, we're still anxiously awaiting to see what happens with the fares. And if we start charging sometime in the future. So that's all we have.
Do we have any update on fares, James?
I don't think we have an update on fares, but I was going to request a future agenda item to maybe talk about the changes to the 5310 program and kind of what that could mean for the region, because, you know, the city applies for that funding as well as and so I think it'd be worth a discussion on what the changes are that ADOT is proposing, and it'll help us, I think, all when we get to that call for projects to
I
understand.
agree. Yeah, and we also need to look at, we've just received our preliminary award notice for year one for our grant application for the 5311 funds. And there was $30 million of requests for 15 million in funding. So this year is one of the first years that the only capital that they've awarded is preventative maintenance. There's no rolling stock or any additional capital items. So they are asking systems to apply for it under 5339, which is going to come out in a couple of weeks. So we'll know more on the specifics of that funding program. But there's no vehicles funded that we've had planned that we thought we would be receiving under 5311. So we should probably take a look at both of those.
Yeah. So that's a good, so just that, how is the federal funding picture changing for our region? What are we seeing from DOT? What are the other MPOs and transit districts requesting statewide, to sort of understand? Because we've traditionally always seen that as a very stable revenue source, 5311 funding.
Yeah.
And the 5310. And if things are changing there, then we're going to need to start planning for that. So.
And I believe when we put this to an additional agenda item on the next meeting, we can discuss the 5310. I believe they've changed the rubric of how many miles a vehicle needs before age of replacement. John, maybe you can, we can talk about this later, but I think that's some of the criteria that we're seeing.
Yeah, this is John Oro Valley. I think it's 350,000 miles or 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
350,000, huh? That's ambitious.
Is that John, is that a cutaway?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's for cutaways. I'm sorry. Yes,
Okay.
that's for cutaways.
Mhm.
I think most of the cutaways that I've seen get to 280 have just been beaten to death. So that's to try to get another 100,000 miles out of those vehicles.
Yeah, we're operating a lot of ours over 200,000 miles right now, and I'm hoping we don't have to take them to 300,000. But those are the different criterias of 5310. And I think we just have to look at the established priorities of the 5310 process, and the committees can provide a little bit more insight, and maybe the state, on where they see the future of that funding for the recommendations. So I will put that on for the agenda of next time. We discussed the call for projects. We'll be seeing that for this fall for the development of the new. So everyone will be able to look at, the needs and the call for projects. But I believe the 5310, 5311 discussion would be beneficial for the group to discuss how that might impact our regional capital needs and what other areas of funding we have to look at. I know from the RTA side, we'll definitely look at the 5339 because they've got about $4 to $5 million, I believe, for capital needs there. So
you're saying ADOT has that?
Under 5339.
Yeah, because the other thing that we're going to be doing this year is updating our transit asset management plans. And that's going to be a regional effort as well. So we need to,
Yes.
if we have some of these vehicles that are going to be sort of in a special bucket, more or less, because they have, we had established the original criteria for replacement as an age-based criteria, but now essentially we've got this subset of the vehicles in the regional fleet that are now mandatory to a mileage benchmark. So that's we need to figure out how to handle that.
We can have when we discuss the transit asset management plan, we can discuss all those factors, because it is 5310's kind of put that extra layer on in terms of eligibility.
And the reality also is that the lead times on getting cutaways is incredible. I think that we've got an order of like 18, and it's going to be over a year before we see them So you're almost forced to get more mileage out of these just because of the delays.
So that's what we're seeing with our vehicles as well, is you want to replace them based on the year, and just because of even the last round that we had were such a delay. We've
Yeah.
got 6 on order right now, and we're definitely not going to get them by the end of September, we've been told. So I don't even.
Yeah, actually, we were told October, November for ours.
Yeah.
So.
So that also has to be taken into consideration. We're just not meeting those replacement of the year based on just the additional lag time for vehicles.
Right. So you get into this situation where you start having to build in this year of anticipated delay, and when you order and when you receive, and how does that work into the replacement formula? Is that you just go ahead and order things a year before they're, you're not retiring them at the same time that you used to, where you had maybe, 4 months or 6 months. So yeah, it's a little tricky.
It does. Are there any additional items or updates? Well, then I will move that we just adjourn the meeting. It is 11:42. Thank you all. Our next meeting will be either in July or August.
Thanks, Amber.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank